Hey, welcome back everybody. This is Low Life Plays, coming at you with another deck tech here. This one I'm still kind of tweaking, working on. It's kind of all the decks really, but this one is super fun. I've always loved the Eldrazi. They are always super fun to play, very impactful when they come into the game, so it just gives you a lot of fun stuff to do. This one is Ulalek, Fused Atrocity. So this one is all colors. You can substitute colorless mana in place of some of those colors, which is what we're doing in this deck. We need a lot of colorless sources, but we are focusing in teamers. So we're going to be in blue, green, and red. And the reason for that is I wanted to put a kind of a flash theme in here, which we'll talk about and we'll see. But the main reason to do the flash theme is to double really interesting triggers. So you can make huge stacks with Ulalek just by, flashing in some of your cheaper Eldrazi on top of some other ones and just creating this huge stack that you copy, make a huge board state. But it also helps us when we flash in on Annihilator triggers, because his ability reads, when you cast an Eldrazi spell, pay 2 colorless if you do copy all spells, which is great, but you also copy all activated and triggered abilities you control, choosing new targets. So it's really, really powerful stuff. So let's just jump into this really quick. Ulalek. So, Liberator, Urza's Battle Thopter. Really good guy here. I mean, essentially he's just a flash flyer who gives colorless spells you control flash. Same thing with Skittering Cicada. We're just trying to get that flash in here. Vivian, Champion of the Wild. She's in here because she allows you to cast creature spells as though they had flash, and then she has added utility of giving your creatures vigilance and reach until end of turn, which can be really nice just in the early game or even in the late game while we need to block or defend, but gives us the ability with vigilance to still attack and get those crazy triggers that are on our creatures. We also have Videlkin Ori, classic, 4 mana, it's really easy to cast, it's generic, lets us cast any spells as though they had flash. And then Leyline of Anticipation. So we're running Leyline because it's just nice. If you have it in your opener, you can just start with it in play. Really cool. I like it a lot. Very good. Glaring Fleshraker. I have this guy here because he's new. Came out in the, there's a lot of stuff that's new, but this one's really just caught my eye. As 2 mana and a colorless. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, you make spawns, which are really good in this deck. And then the big thing here is whenever another colorless creature ETBs, he deals 1 damage to each opponent. So he's a great target to copy and have more of with Ulalek, and then he just facilitates just broad amounts of damage, which is really, really nice, because it's an ETB trigger, so everything you're casting these massive stacks, all the colorless creatures that are ETBing, including his colorless spawns that he's making, just deal so much damage. So if you have 1 or 2 of these, just whoo, he can just bring the heat. Alright, so this is going to be removal, right? So we're going to get into Classic Beast Within, good stuff. Null Elemental Blast, I like it in this deck, just because, destroying a multicolor spell, or countering a spell and destroying a multicolor permanent, those are good options to have, and for 1 colorless, there's always going to be something that we can get rid of, a commander, whatever, really good stuff. Ugin's Binding, this card is nuts for us. I mean, it's our Psych Rift, right? So it lets us return target non-permanent that I don't control to its owner's hand, so it's good early game bounce, and then while it sits in our graveyard, when we cast a card with value 7 or greater, you may exile Ugin's Binding. So you don't even have to. You can choose when you do it. You may exile Ugin's Binding. And then when you do, you Psych Rift everybody else. So there you go. It's an incredible card. Really, really strong. Thief of Existence. This is more of a test run. I'm not super sure how I like him in this deck, but I think he can be pretty good, just because he can target non-creature, non-lands. So he can get like artifacts, enchantments, planeswalkers, any of these annoying things that are 4 or less. And then if you do, whenever he dies, you can make a target opponent draw. So you can target the guy who's being your most, cumbersome enemy at the moment. And when it dies, you can reevaluate and pick whoever you're least worried about, and they can get the draw, because it just says target opponent draws a card. So that's really nice, and it's an exile effect. So it can really help just get rid of some stuff. All is Dust. I mean, we're playing colorless, baby. We're going to just make them cry with an All is Dust. So, no explanation there. We just got to make them sack all their colored permanents. Moonsilver Key. So, why is Moonsilver Key in here, It's in here because of its interesting interaction with Forsaken Monument. So, Forsaken Monument says whenever you tap a permanent for colorless, add an additional colorless. And this allows you to search your library for an artifact card with a mana ability or a basic land card. And due to the way that it's worded, it qualifies as a mana ability. So every time we get this, we're going to go get Forsaken Monument. But worst case scenario, we can go get any of our ramp pieces or land. So it's not even a dead card. Really good stuff. But what we're most likely going to be doing is just going and getting Forsaken Monument every time, because that card just makes the deck run out of control. So, Urza's Incubator, classic tribal card. You know, we're going to pick lizards. No, or do an Eldrazi, costing 2 less. That's just good value. Talisman of Impulse. I chose the Talismans because of their ability to tap for colorless, which we really, really need to have access to, but we do need our colors for some pips. So having Impulse, Curiosity, and Creativity all have the ability to tap for colorless, but also can give us our colors when we need them, and that little damage really doesn't impact us that much. So I think it's a fine trade for us and what we want to do. Sol Ring. It's excellent. I mean, Sol Ring's great. It's really good in Ulalek just because it allows you to kind of keep it on the side, and then this can either, you know, you can ramp with it, but it can also just be your 2 colorless you need for Ulalek's ability in one spot. The Great Henge. So the Great Henge, I know it's a pricey card, but if you have one, it goes great in here just because it's pretty easy to get it out pretty cheap because a lot of our creatures do have pretty strong toughness or power. And then it gives you incremental life gain, gets you 2 green, and then it also is card draw. So whenever I non-token ETBs, it gets stronger, and you get to draw a card. Mana Crypt, I know. Mana Crypt, man, like, why are you throwing this in here? Well, I have a Mana Crypt, so just might as well throw it in. But you could easily swap it out for a Worn Power Stone. And I think it would be functionally pretty much the same. I just like to run a card like Mana Crypt in a deck where I have huge things that I want to get out before I die. But Worn Power Stone would be a pretty good replacement if you don't want to throw Mana Crypt in, and it would still be pretty functional. So, Sowing Mycospawn. This one is, I mean, it does everything we want to do. The art is crazy. I love it. And essentially, it's 4 mana, and you can kick it. And when you cast this spell, so it's a cast trigger, so you can double it, search your library for a land card. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. So, just a land card? Yeah, I'm going to go get, you'll see. We got some good targets. So, and then if you did kick it, you can exile a target land. So it's also land removal on your Solemn Simulacrum. It's really nice. Jessica's Will, same reasoning for Mana Crypt. My Eldrazi cost a lot. So if I see an opportunity someone's got a big grip, and I can just Jessica's Will and then cast all my colorless big boys, I'm going to do it. So that's why we got Jessica's Will. Oblivion Sower, really excellent. I mean, he's a 6 mana 5/8. And essentially what he allows you to do is just exile the top 4 cards of target opponent's library, and then you get to ramp, so you get their lands, and it's also a cast trigger. I mean, I'm going to stop saying it's a cast. Pretty much everything we're running is a cast trigger, so. Ugin the Ineffable. So Ugin is classic. I mean, he's got great on his -3 just to blow up a permanent that's 1 or more colors. He gets you bodies into play with his manifesting, just because your exiling creature is getting 2/2s. But he also is a cost reduction, right? He gives you 2 less to cast on your colorless spells, which is the same thing with Conduit of Ruin, except for it's a little bit more restrictive with Conduit of Ruin. So he reads that the first creature spell you cast each turn costs 2 less, which is really important to us because we're trying to play at flash speed. So we can really take more advantage of Conduit of Ruin than maybe other decks do, but I like him either way. He also tutors for a creature that costs 7 or greater, puts it on top, really valuable for us, and we'll talk about what we're going to get later on when we get into our big boy bombs. It that Heralds the End. This guy, I've been debating him. I think he's cool. You know, he's a 2/2 for 2, so he's evenly costed. He makes your 7 costs, your 7 drops that any colorless spell, so it's not even restricted to creatures. That's nice. Make him 1 less. And then he also gives just your colorless creatures just a little bit of a buff, just 1/1s, which can be nice. Herald of Kozilek. He's you know, colorless spells cost 1 less to cast. That's pretty cool, especially if you're, you know, have Ulalek out, and all these dorks are way better if you're just having 2 of them. Cultivator Drone, same thing. He makes colorless mana, and you can only use it to cast colorless spells or activate colorless abilities, which is nice. Snapping Voidcraw. He makes 2 colorless mana, so he is just a way better dork. And he also has card draw stapled onto him. Delighted Halfling. So Delighted Halfling, I really like in this deck. It makes colorless mana, which is cool, but it can also make a mana of any color and make a legendary spell uncounterable. So all of our big titans, our commander, it can just be really helpful to just make it so your stuff isn't getting countered, while also being a colorless resource. Void Grafter. This is going to start, we have some protection spells. In addition to him being a flash-in hexproof, the flash is really nice, because even if you don't need the protection, he has flash enabled on himself, so you don't really, you know, if you don't have a flash enabler in play, you can just get out this Void Grafter and double those triggers that you might want to do. Really, really interesting. Smuggler's Surprise. I mean, for a bunch of mana, you could put 2 creatures from your hand onto the battlefield, so that's a really good one. It also is in here for just another Heroic Intervention, and then it also lets you mill 4 cards, and you can put 2 of a creature or land into your hand. So I've used all these modes. They're all pretty good. You know, if you're really short on cards and you need some gas, it can do that, and then it can also put creatures into play, give your stuff. It's just super strong. Heroic Intervention, I mean, it gives your permanents indestructible and hexproof. It's just good. It's just good. All right, we're getting into the big boys now. So Null Drifter. Null Drifter is just Mull Drifter, but Eldrazified. So he's really interesting because you can evoke him, but he still counts as a 7-mana CMC, so there's some interactions that are interesting there. But when you cast the spell, you draw 2 cards. Just card draw on a big Annihilator 1, that's good. Spawnbed Protector. This is one of the things I get pretty frequently with our Conduit of Ruin, just because it's really strong. You know, at the beginning of your end step, return up to 1 Eldrazi creature from your graveyard to your hand, period. And then you create 2 1/1 Eldrazi Scions. So he's building your board, making you more Scions, ramping you. He's also recurring your things. He's a huge threat, and he's a 6/8. Really, really powerful. I love this Heart on Void Winnower. Just this weird little tentacle man. He's so foily, though. It's hard to get a good read on him. But essentially, your opponents can't cast spells with even mana values, and they can't block with even mana values, which, that's just annoying. It's really irritating. Artisan of Kozilek, it's just a good guy, right? I mean, when you cast him, you just get a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, has Annihilator too, really strong. Now the big boys, the reason we play Eldrazi, right? We're playing Ulamog, the Infinite Gaia. And when you cast him, you destroy a permanent. He's indestructible. He has Annihilator 4, crazy. And he's a Shuffle Titan. So if he dies or goes to your graveyard, you just shuffle your graveyard into your library, so he protects you from mill, which is good. Same thing with Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. This one lets you draw 4 cards, which is really good, but he also has Annihilator 4, which Annihilator is just crazy. Ulamog, Ceaseless Hunger. We love our Ulamog. When you cast him, exile 2 target permanents, so anything. Indestructible, and then when he attacks, defending player exiles the top 20 cards of their library. Really rude. Very rude thing to do. And then we also have the Defiler. Ulamog the Defiler. He's busted, dude. He's nuts. So when you cast him, and with Ulalek in play, you can double that cast trigger and target 2 different players, which is really nice. Have somebody mill half their deck, and then someone else mill half their deck. Or you can have someone just mill half their deck, and then half their deck again. It doesn't kill somebody, but it does take them down to like a third. It's nuts. Or a fourth, or whatever the fraction is. It's just annoying. Ulamog, he has Ward of Sacrifice 2 permanents. Super irritating. When he ETBs, he gets 1/1 counters equal to the greatest mana value among cards in exile. So strong. He's already a 7/7. And he has Annihilator X, where X is the number of counters he gets. I mean, he's probably going to be at least Annihilator 4. If not, most times it's going to be even bigger than that. So, really, really good. If that betrays Annihilator 2, and then whenever anybody sacks a non-token permanent, I get it, which is just super cool. That's neat. It has a lot of synergies to other, like, aristocrats. If they're sacking stuff, I want it. So it can shut down a lot of things, in addition to just being an 11/11 Annihilator 2. Hideous Taskmaster. This guy is insane. He can win games, man. If you have Ulalek in play, and you're able to play Hideous Taskmaster, and then copy Hideous Taskmaster's cast trigger, whoo, baby. That's nuts. Because for each opponent, you gain a creature they control. They gain Haste, Trample, Annihilator 1, and it itself has Trample, Haste, Annihilator 1. And if you could double that, that's just because you get another Hideous Taskmaster, and then you get 3 more creatures. It's just a game ender. Same thing with its, feel like it's almost Big Brother here, Flayer of Loyalties. Flayer of Loyalties is just so destructive. You know, if you copy its trigger, you can take more things, but essentially, I mean, just giving even just a base Flayer of Loyalties is so strong. Trample Annihilator 2, you steal something for a turn, untap it, gains haste, and then it gets 10/10. You untap that creature until end of turn. It has base power and toughness 10/10, gains Trample, Annihilator 2, and haste. Just so good. And then this is probably the number 1 target that you get with Conduit of Ruin, is Haragast, Erupting Nullkite. Just because giving all of your Eldrazi a merge is so good, but it plays so good with the nesting boy. just because when you... So if you don't know, Emerge is you can cast this spell by sacrificing a creature and then paying the Emerge cost reduced by that creature's mana value. So an example of this, I could sack a creature of 6 or greater, and it would be reduced to just 2 red, which is super strong. But what it really does is it lets you draw. So if it's, if it's the last card in your hand or whatever, you can exile your hand to draw 3 cards if you need some more gas. But it's a flying 6/6, and each creature spell you cast has a merge, which is so cool because you can just sack Eldrazi and just keep getting your big Eldrazi out there, or sack your lower ones that we've been playing in the early game, and then just be like, okay, boom, there we go, so good. Now the big baddie themselves, right? Emrakul, the World Anew. When you cast it, gain control of all creatures target player controls. That's not till end of turn. I just have them now. So it's so strong. And then it's a cast trigger again. So let's just take a bunch of creatures. And then it has flying, which is cool. Protection from spells and permanents that were cast this turn. Not super relevant most of the times, but it can be. And then when he leaves play, or when she leaves play, sacrifice all creatures you control. That's good. Because you stole the whole board from other people. So if they're going to blow it up, okay, all your stuff dies too then. Emrakul, the Promised End. This one's really interesting. The one less to cast, it doesn't happen too much. I mean, we get a little bit of a reduction, but the big thing is here is when we cast it, we gain control of target player's next turn. It's a huge threat as a 13/13 flying trample, protection from instants, really irritating to remove. I think it's just a super powerhouse. So one reason that really threw this into the Teamer direction is because when you're playing these big bombs, you don't just want to sit around for a turn while they sit in play and don't have any impact. Yes, they have cast triggers, but we want to attack with these baddies. So we're throwing in some haste enablers like Eldrazi Linebreaker. This one allows you to, at the beginning of combat, target creature you control gains haste and +X/+O, where X is the number of Eldrazi you control. Really good stuff for haste enabling. Teamer Ascendancy, creatures you control have haste, and it lets you draw cards whenever you cast a creature with power 4. And it's an ETB. So whenever a creature with power 4 or greater ETBs, you could draw a card. Rhythm of the Wild, creatures can't be countered, which is awesome. And then non-token creatures have Riot, so you can either make them stronger, or you can give them haste. So really in here to just give them haste. Rising of the Day, creatures you control have haste. And then legendary creatures also get a +1/+0 buff. Really in here for the haste, but it's nice because let's make our Eldrazi even bigger. And then we're running Awakening Zone. This is something I've had, but I'm just trying it out. Having those spawn just come back every turn, just having one is just nice. It's like, are you really going to remove my Awakening Zone? Maybe, but it's just super good value for us. Gives us a blocker if we need it, gives us ramp if we need it. I think it's a really strong one. Path of Annihilation. This card is just so strong for us, right? So it's devoid. When Path of Annihilation enters the battlefield, it allows you to create 2 colorless Eldrazi, and it makes your Eldrazi tap for any color. So now you don't have to sack your tokens. And then whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 7 or greater, just gain 4 life. That's awesome. I want to gain life. Yes, please. Sarkhan's Unsealing. This is an interesting one. So Sarkhan's Unsealing is whenever you cast a creature spell with power 4, 5, or 6, you can deal 4 damage to any target. But whenever you cast a creature spell with power 7 or higher, he deals 4 damage to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control. So good. I mean, it's nuts. Because when it's in play, that's a trigger on the stack, baby. Copy that. Kozilek's Unsealing. So whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 4, 5, or 6, you make 2 0/1 spawn, and then whenever you cast a spell or a creature spell with mana value 7 or greater, draw 3 cards. So this one's based on power, this one's based on mana value. So both have a lot of pieces that synergize with what they need. They're both very good for what they need to be doing. And then we're running Up the Beanstalk. So it draws a card when it ETBs, and then also whenever you cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater. Super good. And then Elemental Bond. So just whenever a creature with power 3 or greater ETBs under your control, draw a card. Just card draw. And then we're getting into some synergistic pieces. So Roaming Throne, really good in this deck. It's really in here because Annihilator, So when you pick Eldrazi with this, if a triggered ability of another creature you control of the chosen types triggers, it triggers an additional time. So it can make some crazy situations when you have Ulalek and you have Roaming Throne. Just so many triggers to copy and double and just, very, very strong. Same thing here with Echoes of Eternity. If a triggered ability of a colorless spell you control or another colorless permanent you control triggers, do it again, and then whenever you cast a colorless spell, copy it, and you can choose new targets for the copy. That's crazy. And then this is just I've used it mainly. It's been a big value piece, but it can also just be a game ender, right? Anything that takes an extra turn can just put you so far ahead. But essentially, what you can do here is it has the abilities of the main original Titans, where it can't be countered, which is awesome on itself because it costs a ton of mana. But destroy target permanent, draw 4 cards, take an extra turn, exile Rise of the Eldrazi. It's thematic, it's powerful, it's big, it's splashy. That's why we play it, right? Getting into the lands, right? So lands, we're running a lot of the Soul Ring lands. So this one can tap for 2 if you have 7 or more lands. Eldrazi Temple taps for 2 if we're using it for Eldrazi. We got the Urza's Tower, Power Plant, and Mine. We also have Urza's Factory, just cause it's just in here. Just a good colorless land, I suppose. I think I used to have Urza's Workshop, but the Metalcraft is pretty much impossible to hit for me, so might take this out. If you have a better utility land, like a Blast Zone would probably be really good. Ketria Triumph, just get that in there. Cavern of Souls, whew, excellent. Allows us to, use that colored mana into the generic costs to make our things uncounterable. Really good. And then these are some of the best lands we can have because they tap for colorless, but they also tap for colored mana to cast those Eldrazi and make sure we're hitting the pips that we need. Command Tower, Exotic Orchard, Classics. Then we got our Eye of Ugin. This is what we typically go and grab with any land tutor. So Mycosynth can just go grab Eye of Ugin, which is super, super good. Just go fetch that. Urza's Cave, most times you go get Eye of Ugin. Just getting you a 2 mana reduction to all your Eldrazi is just so strong. And then in addition to paying 7, search your library for a colorless creature card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. Crazy strong. Urza's Cave, just sack it, go get a land, put it into play. Really, really good. Bountiful Landscape, I like this because it's colorless, comes into play untapped, can get our colorless fix, but if we start needing those pips, it can go get one of the things we might need. Zul'Faryn Void, it's just a colorless utility land to scry. Scavenger Grounds, it's graveyard hate. Everybody's got to have some graveyard hate. Flash Enabler, so Alchemist's Refuge, pay a blue and a green, you can cast spells this turn as though they had flash. Lets us just go flashing it out. Emergence Zone, kind of a last resort flash. If you really need to get that trigger out or you have an opportunity to do something pretty crazy, you can do an Emergence Zone where you pay 1, you sack it, you can cast as though you had flash this turn. Really good. Got some more utility here with Shinka, the Blood-Soaked Keep. This is a new ad. I was just going through the lands before this video, and this seemed like it would fit. I mean, it's just a utility piece. I mean, it doesn't come in tapped, it adds red, which is really nice. And then target legendary creature just gets first strike, so just giving those Eldrazi so you can get those attack triggers through and just giving them first strike seems pretty nice. Yavimaya, this helps turn all of our utility lands into also forests. Carplusian Forest, this is just same reason that we ran the Talismans, is why we're going to be running these lands, the Pain lands, because they do everything that we want. They give us our colors, but they also focus in on letting us have our colorless mana. And then we're running Stomping Ground, Sulphur Falls, Breeding Pool. These are our dual lands. Get those in there. And then we got our basics. So, tokens too. We're running a few forests. Running some islands here. And then 2 mountains. We don't have red isn't our biggest thing. We have a lot of ways to make red. But main reason is I only had 2 Eldrazi red lands. And I want them all to be all the Eldrazi lands. They're so cool. But in time, I suppose. So we'll scoop all these up here and get that going. Grab this huge stack of boys. And then top it off with Ulalek, baby. So that is Ulalek. So if you like this deck, if you have suggestions, like the video, give me a comment, subscribe if you want to see more decks like this. I'm always brewing, taking stuff apart, building it back up. So outside of that, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.